Welcome back. So today I'm going to show another one of my couture embroidery techniques and share that with you. This has been one of my more probably advanced, intermediate to advanced techniques. And it's one that my students ask for quite often, so I thought it might be a good one to share with you. I call it the Lesage inspired rose. Put that upside down so you can see it. And it essentially was inspired by one of the flowers that the Lesage School teach, but I was inspired by theirs, but didn't love the roundness and the tightness of theirs. So I created my own version of it. And I've got three different ones because I've taught this many times in workshops and to private students. So I like showing like essentially the same thing, but done in different ways. Maybe actually I'll swap cameras and show you because it might be easier. You can see a close up and talk you through. Bear with me. Swap over now. Okay, a little bit more. There we go. So I think this was the first one I did, and I used a very soft net um, and a silky lining fabric actually for that one. And just to show you, this was actually some curtain fabric, but I really loved the color. And I did some tambour embroidery leaves and some, yeah, laser cut elements for the buds with that one. This was my second one, I think, and I used silk organza with some silk satin, and this one is worked on silk dupion. So yeah, once again, really beautiful technique, but you know, you get quite a similar but different feel. And the last or latest one that I did, again, I'm on silk organza that I've stenciled in the background because that's my thing at the moment. And this one was silk metallic mesh. This was a really interesting fabric that I had a whole roll of years ago and just have little scraps left, but that combined really quite nicely with the silk satin. So basically, what you need is a sheer. So today I'm going to work with silk georgette and some polyester satin because they were quite a good color match. And you're going to cut out circles. So to start with, I cut out three of the satin for the first three petals. And then I cut out approximately seven. Sometimes it's more, it changes. It depends on the day, it depends on the fabric. And this is a combination of some satin ones and some georgette ones. So what I've learned after doing this flower so many times is I don't just go ahead and spend quite a long time in creating petals. I start with a few and then I let the flower show me the way. I let the fabric show me the way. Might end up using a lot more satin or I might use up more of the sheer. It just depends on the day and how the fabrics are behaving. Now I kept this one. This is silk georgette. Now I love working with silk. You'll see it in all my videos and all my work, but silk georgette is my least favorite fabric to work with. And you can see when I cut these out, I did these in layers of three, right? This one came out pretty much okay, almost circular. And this one came out less than circular. Now, I'm not cutting on the straight, on the grain, and I'm not cutting on the bias. I'm just cutting out of scraps in whichever way I can fit, you know, my template onto the fabric. So you don't have to worry about that because what will happen is the misshapen ones actually work to my advantage because as I'm getting towards the outer petals of the flower, it's great that they can be bigger. All right. So, you know, if I fold it that way, I could use it up here in the smaller ones. And if I fold it more in an oval shape, it will be longer. And I can actually see from this one that I did a couple of double ones where I put the sheer over the satin and made a double. Now I'm not going to do that today because I want to be able to see the difference between the sheer and the satin because I think I prefer that. I think I did some double ones. I did. So I did some double ones here because it was net, and the net by itself I didn't love. So depending on what sheer you've got and what you've decided to use, there's no right or wrong. There's just experimentation. All right. So you're going to start with some small circles. 3 of these is a really good starting point, and some large circles in your sheer. In the template there, it's actually optional for really, really big petals if you want to make a giant rose, but I often mostly don't use that. I just use these two. All right, now I am using Gutermann cotton because Gutermann cotton is my absolute favorite. I use it for everything in my work. You're going to take your large circle. I've got a single thread with a knot, and I've got a very good color match to my fabric in my cotton. All right, now I don't iron this. I only finger press it because I want to keep that nice soft edge on my fold, and then all I do is a little running stitch as I hold that together. I don't pin because I'm working in satin and I'm working in silk georgette. Pins fall out of the net mostly anyway, but I don't want to put any holes or make any marks on my fabric because it's such delicate couture fabric. If you're working in a thicker fabric or in cotton, then I'm sure you can absolutely pin and make your experience a little less slippery than mine. But I'm used to working with these shiny sheer materials. It's mainly what I work with. All right, so we get to the end, and what I like to do is just give that stitch a tiny little pull. Not too much, but see how that's just got a nice little puff to it? And what will happen is when we make our petals, that's already starting to form quite a nice curved shape. Now, sometimes I leave the threads loose like this so that I can manipulate them, but especially on the sheer ones, I don't. I tend to just do a little knot like that at the end so that I'm ready to go. All right, so I don't bore you to death, here are the big ones that I prepared. Here's a few sheer big ones, and I've got my 3 little ones. I'm going to just rethread that because I don't personally like working with short threads, or extra long threads. See, that happy medium, about 25 to 30 centimeters, is normally what I work with. Ooh, the pressure's on to thread the needle in front of everybody. All right, now we have to create a little inside of our rose. And I do this in all different ways. Let me show you. So in this one, this is the little bit I'm talking about in here. In this one, I had some laser cut elements, all right? So I folded that up just like the bud and put that in there. What did I do on this one? Yep, I did the same on this one. I've got the sheer and I've got the satin, and I bunched that one up a little bit more. So, you know, depending on the fabric. Now, this one I didn't. I had all this scrap. You can see I always use my cutout scraps. So this is what I mean by my scraps. After you've cut out your circles, you've got all this waste fabric. So I created this out of necessity and out of innovation, I guess, but let's call it, you know, no waste repurposing. save the planet kind of embroidery. Move that down a bit. There we go. So I'm going to do the same today. I'm going to bunch up some of this leftover scrap. I do like to just, it's silk, so it's not going to behave. If I can rip the fabric, I prefer to do that because I get a more interesting shape. And something I always do, if I can, is distress my edges. And I do that by getting my nail in there. This is just my thing. If you don't like distressed edges, you certainly don't have to do it. You can make yours neater. You could bead it, you could pad it, you can put some flower stamens in there. You could do anything you like, really. But I'm just going to start, oh yeah, by bunching something up. Where's my needle? I'm going to start by just creating something by mucking about with it like that. Folding it. Now I'm going to refine that bit there. Let's see if I can refine that by pulling it off. Needs a little trick. So I've got a little tuft, something like that. Now, when I'm thinking about my starting point, I've got this beautiful space here. I'm only doing one rose on this sample, similar to this one, because I like my stenciled background. I'll probably do a couple of buds, but no leaves on this one, because I think these can act, my stenciled pattern can act as leaves. So what I'm not going to do is put my flower slap bang in the middle with the front or the top of the flower here, because to me that just always looks very stiff. So I'm going to put the center of my flower on an angle, and because I'm right-handed, that will naturally be to the left-hand side for me. Can go either side depending on your preference. And now I have to picture. So we want my angle, you know, I want my angle going over like that, but I have to picture where it's going to end. So my first petals are going to come around here. I think it needs to come up a little bit more. So I'm envisioning in my mind where it's going to be, and then I'm going to loosely do a couple of stitches and stitch it down. And I say loosely because I might want to change it. So at this point, I don't do too many stitches. And every time I stitch this flower, it comes out different. Every time one of my students stitches it, again, depending on the way they stitch, depending on the fabrics they're using, always different, but always gloriously beautiful. Beautiful. That will do. Excuse me. I'm going to finish that off with a French knot and bring my tail back up so that I don't have to flip my frame. Often when I'm working on a large tambour frame, on a garment piece, it's not practical to flip the frame, so I learned how to French knot my ends off. All right, construction now begins. So we've got the first 3 little petals, and you will need some pins. There's a little bit of acupuncture, as I call it, that goes on here. So we're going to start by looking at it this way. What's going to happen if I pin it there, fold it over, and start stitching? That's not bad, but I think I might want to start it just a little higher. Yep, I think I'm kind of happy with that. So here is my needle. I'm just doing some little tacking stitches, so I've caught the edge, and then I am sewing in a straight line, but it doesn't have to be perfect. This technique is a mix of incredible detail and finery and being a little bit organic at the same time. And again, I don't get too excited and do 50,000 stitches because I might want to undo this petal and I might not know that until 2 or 3 petals later. All right, so now I'm going to fold my petal over and then I'm going to fold it down and across. And to me, I was always picturing a rose and thinking how the rose petal will, fold across, and the curl of the edge of the petal will also. Don't worry about hiding that raw edge. It will get hidden by the next petal. And I might occasionally do a little stitch down here at the bowl, but often not. And again, that's possibly because I don't know if it's in the right place yet. Okay, my second petal. You've got 2 choices here. You can do the same thing by stitching one in the middle and then one on the opposite side that's going to come across, or I could jump over here. I could do my cross one, and then I can come back and do one in the middle. And I think that's what I'm going to do with this one. That feels right to me. So again, let's audition. What is the angle that this one needs to be stitched on? It's going to be right if I do it about there. Possibly. These are in the same line, so some people will like that. Sometimes I like to do one side deliberately higher than the other. And this is definitely one of those times I much prefer that. So, same thing again. I'm going to start with that top edge, do a stitch over the edge so that's firmly down. And then a couple of little stitches towards the bottom. All right, I park my needle, I take my pin out, and then I play with my turn back. Ooh, that one's better than the first one. I like that. Ooh, I like that one a lot. So I'm going to actually pin that. I'm going to jump over here. Get my pin out. I'm going to jump over here. Do a little anchoring stitch. I'm not even going to finish that one off because I have a feeling I might have to restart this and move again, but we will see. Now, something I didn't explain is I am working on painted silk droopy-on, and the silk droopy-on has a very, very fine iron-on interfacing on the back to give it a little bit of strength. All right, now I did leave the tail on this one because sometimes I want them flatter and sometimes I want to pull them right up to make, a smaller puffier shape. So maybe when you're making your little half circles, you could leave a few with tails that give you that option and finish a few of them off. I've just found after doing this so many times that that's actually quite a helpful little hint for you. I don't ruche them up too much, although this little rose is quite fat and full already. So maybe some of these could be puffed up just that little bit more. So let me finish that one off. No, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to play and you're going to audition. So let me show you this one. Works it really well. So I've got my two sides, my left, my right, and then this big central one. Now this goes into more of a V, as mine is actually already quite a beautiful shape. And there's maybe, I don't even need that next small one. Maybe now I could jump to, yeah, I think I actually prefer that. One of the bigger ones, but I'll pick one of the smaller ones because of these are in Georgette. That one looks a little smaller because of the way I stitched it. And maybe that one will go in next. All right. And basically, you just keep going. You play, you experiment. You know, do you have one sheer, two satin, or do you prefer two sheer, then three satin? There's no answer, there's no right or wrong. It's going to be your unique expression, um, your authentic expression, which is that thing I'm always banging on about. And yeah, just go with what feels right for you. And then when it comes to finishing it off, I've used just all that waste fabric. I've ruched it up. With this one, I've put a few sequins and beads. With this one, because it was the net and it was quite transparent, and I wanted to show off all the beautiful tambour embroidery leaves, I did less fabric but more embellishment, more beads to kind of show that one really clearly. And with this one, yeah, more fabric on this one, less embellishment. So it just depends. You can make your flower as big or as small. Changing cameras again so I can see you. Completely up to you, whatever feels right. So I hope that's inspired you and opens your mind to couture embroidery in a new and different way, hand stitching, combining some printed backgrounds as well. I'm heading over now to Patreon where I'm going to take those students through the whole flower step by step. So if that's something that would interest you, you're more than welcome to join us over there. And I'll leave you here for this week. Keep creating, keep shining your light brightly out into the world, and remember that mastery comes with lots of practice and an intent to, you know, get really good at what you do. And there's such pleasure and joy at becoming masterful in a particular creative expression. And for me, that expression has always been couture embroidery. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.